Welcome to the Copper State Marching Podcast, sponsored by Arizona Marching Band Association, AZMBA. My name is Martin Hebda, the AZMBA Director of Education and Outreach.
And I'm Aaron Vogel. The AZMBA Copper State Podcast was created to bring together the Arizona marching band community and to connect, educate, and entertain those that are involved in this wonderful activity.
And Aaron, as you know, the Copper State Marching Podcast has an email address so our listeners can reach out to us. We had put out a question if there was any end of the year or summer band dilemmas that any directors might had. And we had our first comment come in. The comment was, my school is closing down much of our campus for the summer for upgrades and repairs. I'm not sure if I will have a place for my summer rehearsals or band camp. What would you do?
That definitely can be tricky, and my first recommendation was just think about the upside for the school. Upgrades and repairs can be a really good thing for the school by and large, but obviously can cause some serious headaches for the band if you're locked out of your room or if you're locked out of rehearsal facilities. So I think the first step there is, check with admin on the level of access. Is this a complete lockout? And if so, if they could provide, a start date and end date. And if it's not a complete lockout, then what level of access would be permitted? If it's a complete lockout, then I think the first step would be, doing that instrument and equipment checkout period, much like, what many of us did if you taught through the COVID period, where students can come in, they can check out their instrument, they can check out, perhaps a music stand, the guard can check out their equipment, and you can try to get as many things that the students then can transport back and forth as best as they can. And then, just make sure, obviously, you're having really good records on what's been checked out. Then the kids can just transport that item to wherever rehearsal might be. Perhaps you have to keep the larger instruments for the front ensemble, podium and ladders, put that in an equipment truck or trailer if you have one. And then the next step would be to find an alternative rehearsal location if it's absolutely not going to be possible on your campus. Perhaps that could be at a sister school if you have a district with multiple high schools, or at a feeder school in the district. If it's not a complete lockout, then work with admin on what spaces would be available and when.
Yeah, and I've had this situation a couple of times in the last several summers, and I think you kind of nailed it when you're like, talk to your admin and see what this really looks like. Because a lot of times they'll just be like, this whole school is going to be down, we're going to be fixing fill in the blank. But really, it's going to be the cafeteria and these bathrooms for these 2 weeks, and then this other area for these 2 weeks. And you can get really creative. We've walked in through the back door, through the scene shop to get onto the stage to do some things, and then we've gone somewhere else. And you're right. We're glad that they're making the school better. Like that is what they want. And the other thing, and where you may not feel this necessarily as the band director being told you can't use, the building, they're not out to get you. They're not trying to figure out how can we get the band director mad. They've got a grander picture in mind. So the good news is you've been communicated sooner about this. If you're learning about this process now, that's a good thing. Sometimes you wouldn't want it to be, okay, I got my June 15th rehearsal and now everything's shut down. I didn't know about it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And just, open communication, with your administrators, open communication with the plant foreman and the maintenance team. There might be a way that they're like, oh, well, we are painting, but we're going to paint the, fine arts building and the band room. We could do that in June. If you're not there in June, they might be able to have some flexibility there. So that would be great.
So again, I appreciate you messaging in. If you have another dilemma, reach out to us at podcast@azmba.org. And Aaron, we're bringing Scott on the podcast today.
Yeah, Scott Lang's going to be on the podcast, and we're really very much looking forward to this. He's been, a leader in leadership, in particular in band student leadership, for a number of years, for decades. And so really looking forward to the talk with him and hope that everyone learns a lot from this podcast. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and before we bring Scott on, we'd like to thank our sponsors.
AZMBA would like to thank our sponsors: Arizona Cardinals Football Club, The Band Shop, Bravgo Media, Encore Gifts, Forte Athletics, Instrumental Music Center, Mac Pack, Milano's Music, Music Celebrations International, Music for All, Pieces of Flair, Scoreboard Fundraising, Show Dots, Tide Dry Cleaners, and Yamaha. Thank you for supporting AZMBA.
And we welcome Scott Lang from Scott Lang Leadership to the podcast. Scott, we appreciate you coming on. I've known you a good 25, 30 years, but what's kind of cool is just in the last year or so, I really felt like I've gotten to know and I've had a lot of conversations with you in a recent podcast that I've started listening to, which is the Band Dads podcast. So that's been great for me. And I'm like, you know what, you would be perfect to come on here. I'll be talking about a recent episode that you did on that podcast for our listeners to listen to a little bit later. But real quick, if you wouldn't mind, can you give us a quick summary of maybe your musical and educational journey and how you got to where you are today?
Oh, it's nothing special. It's what every one of these podcasts listens to. First of all, we all survived music theory. Step one. Okay. Step two, you go through trauma counseling for having survived music theory. Now, unless you're Aaron Vogel and your brain's a supercomputer,
Mm-hmm.
long story short, folks, you're all Arizona people. I'm an Arizona boy through and through. I graduated Arizona high school, went to Arizona State. Go Devils. Martin, you can't edit that part out. You have to
Will
leave it.
not. It'll be
Go
in. It'll
Devils.
be in.
And then taught at Tempe High School and in the Tempe Union District for 15 years with a 1 year stint in administration in between years 10 and 11. Then, I just decided to change classrooms. That's all I did. I left a physical building classroom and got to go visit a lot of other classrooms, and it's been the joy of my life. So, we all went through that journey together. In fact, what are you, 2 years younger than me?
Me?
3? Yeah,
I
how
don't.
much younger?
I have no idea. I'm only 37. So
Oh, and I'm 38. That's amazing.
God, I'm 24. Look at it. That's great. So yeah, I'm an Arizona boy through and through.
wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. Tell us, Martin had mentioned this in the intro, but, tell us about your podcast, Band Dads, and also maybe a bit about how your view of band programs has changed since having your own children in the band.
Oh God, let's start with the first one. The Band Dad podcast started when they are like most bands. We have a social media guy and he's just super sharp. He's all over it. I mean, he's grown a following for Basha. And he's just ubiquitously known and ubiquitously loved in the Basha Band program. He does portraits of all the kids for free. He posts all the pictures for free. Just he's an amazing guy. He approached me at a concert one night and he's like, "Hey, I think you and I should talk." And I'm like, "Okay." I mean, I didn't know him very well. I knew who he was. And I said, "I'm not good with suspense, so let's step outside and talk." And we stepped outside. He said, "I think we should do a podcast." And I said, "I think you should go fly a kite," right? Because there's so many music education podcasts out there. And I'm like, everyone's got an opinion, not interested. I've thought about it. I don't have the bandwidth to edit and do all the things that you guys do. And he said, "Don't worry about that. I'll take care of it all. And I think we should do it for parents." And there isn't one out there. So I went home and I Googled it and he was right. And so, and if anyone's listening to the Bandad podcast, we tell very early on, we didn't know if it would hit. And so I agreed to an 8 episode miniseries in case it was a bomb that I wasn't stuck with an albatross around my neck. And just as you two both know, I'm sure that we got together and we did a practice recording because he was very nervous and it was over Zoom. And as soon as we finished this practice recording, I literally, I hung up with him. I called my wife and said, "This is going to work. It just works." He's Aaron to your Martin. I'm Felix. He's Oscar, from The Odd Couple, if you're old enough, that it just works because he's an analytical data analyst who knows nothing about band and has no opinions. It's numbers, numbers, numbers. And I have an opinion on everything. I'm not a data analyst. And so it just works. But to your second point, my view of band changed significantly when my oldest hit band. Your child is relatively young. I mean, you're not even close, correct, Aaron?
Yeah, my wife and I, we have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, but my
Right.
views on schooling have changed since those kids are now in kindergarten and in third grade, respectively. And so just seeing what happens what did the teacher say? But that doesn't sound right. And, you're kind of going through those processes, and she's in piano lessons, he's in, soccer. And so you see it definitely from a different lens. So I'm interested, what do you see different as a
Well,
band dad?
first of all, it's what's really interesting. A couple quick things. Number one, I believe the pandemic disassociated schools from homes. And let me explain my thought process behind that. For us, the pandemic was a nightmare. I mean, it was 3-hour fights over 10 minutes of homework. It was a nightmare. And my wife and I looked at each other and said, We're trained educators with 36 years experience and we are struggling.
Hmm.
How is mom and dad doing this? And what I saw post pandemic is parents were so frustrated by that experience. School is almost a traumatizing trigger word. They don't want it in their home. Don't, no, it's too fresh. Can't do it. No. And so, one of the things I came about in the last 5 years because of the pandemic, but you asked about how my views have changed, is keep school at school. Don't bring it into my house. And let me tell you my point. Like, if a kid has to practice, great. Have him go after school and practice. You want to keep him for 14 hours on Saturday? Great. That's fine. Don't have him all day and then send him home with work for me. You know, because all it does is create fights and anger and frustration. And that just makes me not want to be involved, right? Before we were get your homework done, get A's, be good, In post pandemic, we're like, well, we didn't even have school for damn near a year. And you're still upright and breathing. Maybe school's not the end all be all. So I think in school in general, it disconnected the two. Now, I see that connection slowly repairing itself, and I believe it's repairing itself through athletics and activities. I do believe that.
Hmm.
If school didn't have athletics and activities, I think the traditional school would be in deep, deep, deep trouble because I didn't go to school for a year and a half. I turned out okay. That's the post-pandemic mentality. But what I couldn't do at home was sports and music. And so that's my drawback into that ecosphere. But in terms of my own children, when my oldest son entered band, um, it's so funny. I had the same conversation with both my boys, and because I require band, I'm unapologetic about that. I require it through your freshman year in high school because my theory is you don't know what you don't know. You have to go experience it. Both my boys fought me tooth and nail to not be in band. Tears, throwing things. I hate you. And I was like, whatever, dude. You're going to hate me on the marching band field. That's the way it goes. Both my boys stayed in band after their freshman year, and it wasn't required. But they didn't know what they didn't know. And when they were fighting me, they said, Dad, you just care because you're a band director. And probably at some point in time in their lives, I did. But as they got closer and older, I didn't really care if their band was any good. I just wanted them to have a place to eat lunch. I wanted them to have friends. I wanted them to be around high achieving kids. I wanted them to have something to do on Friday night. I wanted them to have stupid inside jokes and take trips and stay up all night. And that I wanted them to do band for everything but band. Think about that. I wanted them to do band for everything but band. And I think they now see that. But 15 years ago, I probably said, I want them to play Holst. I want them to play Mahler. Now I just want them to be around other good kids.
That's a good point. I remember, so my oldest has graduated high school already, and um, as a band director, I remember my mentality of teaching and things shifted slightly when I had kids at like Aaron, like around your kids' age, right? And how I did things in the classroom, I felt had a little bit of a shift. And then when you get that kid in band with you, amazing,
I
amazing.
regret it. Well, here's the other thing. I said my standing line for 20 years was my only regret about leaving the classroom was not teaching my own boys. I felt that about my older son, who's now a junior in college. And I can confidently say, if I were my son's band director, it would do irreparable long-term harm to our relationship. I know that now. My older son was teachable. My younger
Hmm.
son, not by dad. And I will tell you, my son's band director, and since it's an Arizona podcast, Miles Denny, I worship him. I worship him. He is more patient with my son than I am. He's kinder to my son than I am. He's more understanding to my son than I am. He's a better teacher for my kid than I am, by far.
Well, he's a
Yeah,
class act too. I
he's
mean,
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is. Just
when it
he's a
comes to
good.
band directors.
And we drive 25 minutes each way to take him to Basha. We don't live anywhere close to Basha. We chose that school because my older son had a very bad band directing experience. Um, and we didn't want that to happen again. And so we shopped band and then chose the school.
That's interesting. When I was growing up, my parents did a similar thing where they we shopped for schools, and they wanted to go to the program that had a really rich music program, big time orchestra and choir and band and marching band. And we lived that. My sister and I lived that experience. So that's really, really cool for your kids. Cause there are some students, and of course there's staff members who listen to this podcast. I'm wondering if you can give a little bit of an idea on, okay, if you're a staff member of, let's say, a band director, like your older son's band director was, where there's some tension there, how best can a student or a staff member help them? And then on the opposite side, if it's just the person you put on a pedestal, how can then, what do you do the same? What do you do different? Like, what advice would you give to those kind of
Well,
staff members?
just so there's a frame of reference, because I took this responsibility very seriously when it wasn't working. And I want to give you an
Yeah.
idea of the scope. They went to contest on the wrong week. I'm
Mm,
talking that level of incompetence. It wasn't, oh, they were 30 cents flat. It was bullying online, bullying kids. It was mean. It was toxic. Um, but I don't know that there are any teachers like that in the state of Arizona. Arizona is filled with some of the finest teachers that I have ever seen teach. What Arizona lacks is the infrastructure to support band, i.e., a 7-period day. If they changed the structure of schools to a 7-period day, every band program would grow by 100 members overnight. It's not when you see a smaller band program, when you see a program that's struggling, I'll walk into that room and I'll listen to that teacher and he is spot on or
mhm.
she is spot on. They're just fighting a block schedule and a 6-period day. So to answer your question, which I've not been good at yet on this podcast, I think I've missed every one, but I want to keep a consistent through line and miss that hole in one. Um, I think the thing is you have to determine, is it something they don't know or is it something I don't know? And so, I can look at a director and say, and I'll use my own band director. Something will come home from our band and it'll say, we're going to do X, Y, Z. And I'm like, thought we were going to do ABC. But then I come to find out, oh no, there was this and this and this, and we had to move it because of this. That wasn't a mistake my director made. That wasn't something he didn't know. It was something I didn't know. So when you're a staff member and you look at a change schedule or a rehearsal strategy or an instructional technique or any one of a host of number of activities, the first thing you got to ask yourself, is this something I don't know or is this something they don't know? And if you've come to the place where you think it's they're not seeing the whole picture or they're making a bad decision, then walk in there like a grown adult and talk to that person. Don't talk to the kids. Don't roll your eyes. Don't put your opinions on your little text group with your other texts or social media. Don't
Mhm.
talk trash. Put on your big boy pants and go in and talk to your director and say, this is what I'm seeing. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm hearing. Because we're all human. We all have blind spots. We all do. And so if you're able to do that, then you're going to find, then one of you is going to become in the know. If you come in and say, listen, I thought in rehearsal you were hot and heavy and you spent too much time on visual block. I'm assuming it's something you don't know. And I come back at you and say, yeah, but our visual score dropped 10%. It's weighted by 30%. So it's overweighting us in the balance point. I had 10 specific things by the GE judge, who's also going to be our judge next week. That's why I did that. Then the tech's going to walk out going, it was something I didn't know.
Mhm.
So that would be the basic operational premise, which is determine who's not in the know. And then if you determine it's someone else, you keep your mouth shut, you keep your opinion shut, you drop the attitude and you go in and talk to the person like an adult. Because if you're a tech, you have aspirations of being a program leader at some level, whether it's in drum corps, whether it's a head staff member, or whether it's you're a band director in training. And you're going to have to learn that if you want to operate in that world, you have to behave in a professional manner. And I will say, to be honest with you guys, I think the quality of instructional texts in the past 20 years, has skyrocketed in terms of their level of knowledge, technique, professionalism, vocabulary, skill sets. I mean, God, in my day, if the drum staff showed up 2 days a week, that was a win, right? And now these guys are coming in after 3 months with the Blue Devils or Blue Knights, and they're teaching technique that I couldn't play when I was on a drum line, and they're teaching it to my high school kids. So, man, shout out to all the techs and all the people who work with marching band staffs because their level of professionalism, by and large, is astounding to me at 19, 20, 22 years old.
And they're so invested in the program they're working with. It's so impressive to see. 20 years ago, it wasn't the same way. I remember my first year at Casa Grande, it was me, my wife, and one other drum guy. And that's the three of us. We came up and we're gonna do this. And then it's exploded, and there's a lot more talent out there as well. I think the Academy has really, which was kind of one of their main purpose, their goals was to help provide education in Arizona. And I think they're really just getting us educators and instructors, and it's
They
awesome.
are, but drum corps in general is doing that, and the
Yeah.
indoor activities doing that because these kids are leaving the state, to go do these activities. They're getting, I mean, your staff probably has a better passport than you do. I mean,
Yeah.
I travel with this and I consult here and I went to Dayton and saw this and I went to Grand National. Like, it's incredible what these 19, 21, and 22-year-old kids are doing. Just incredible.
When I first got to Casa Grande, I told the administration, I'm like, we need to put the best in front of the students. We want them to be the best. We need to put the best in front of them.
Absolutely.
And I think it's awesome that we have those resources in our state. So you were teaching band for many years, and then something sparked in you, and you're like, I want to do a lot of leadership and working with people, and you kind of did a shift somewhat. And I know you probably did a lot of that leadership work when you were still teaching, but can you maybe explain the thought process or maybe the spark of that journey?
I can there was a significant incident and like it was probably my fourth year teaching and we all have leaders. And let's be clear, the reason we have leaders is survival. Like, we move a lot of crap, guys. We seriously have a serious amount of crap and inventory and stuff to do and kids to teach. And so it's about survival. So we all had leaders. I had leaders. It was probably my fourth or fifth year teaching, and someone brought alcohol to camp. And I
Mm.
was devastated. Other than the death of a student, it was the most disappointing day I've ever had in my career. I was devastated. How could they do that? How could they? We searched the camp, couldn't find it, got back to rehearsal. Kid came back to me again and said, no, there's alcohol here, Mr. Lang. And we searched again and we found it. Now, what I came to understand is that through, gossip and some of my leaders knew about it and didn't come to me. And I realized then I'm doing something seriously wrong with my leaders. I mean, I'm doing something seriously wrong. And so I just blew up the whole thing. And I said, not doing it the way I've been doing it. So, long story short, what I did is I sat down and thought, okay, first of all, if you're listening to this, understand this. Leadership selection is the single most important thing you'll do all year long. It's not training. If you get a good dog, you don't need to worry about training it. If you get a bad dog, no matter how much you train it, it's still going to be a bad dog. Like, and I mean that sincerely. You get the wrong kid in the wrong position thinking, I bet when I work with him, it doesn't work that way. So what I realized was, first thing I was doing wrong was I wasn't putting enough weight into the selection process. And I was putting too much weight into the training process. Because I'll be honest with you, a good kid's going to be a good kid. And they're going to do good things in good ways. And so I just paused and I thought, okay, I got to reinvent this whole thing. What do I want? I want a kid who's organized because we got to do a lot of stuff. You got to keep your calendar straight. You got to handle your business. I want a kid who's going to be a solutions provider. I want a kid who's going to be an advocate. I want a kid who's going to be service oriented. And I want a kid who's going to be creative and fun. That's what I figured out first. Before I did anything,
Mhm.
I said, what do I want to build? I said, I deconstructed it. That's what I want. Okay. Now I have to come up with a selection process that attracts and rewards that type of kid and repels kids who aren't of that mindset. The kid looks at my application and goes, that's a crap ton of work. Yes, it is.
Mhm.
Anything else you want to talk to me about? Well, God, I have to do a service project for the group. Yeah, you do. That's a lot of work. Yeah, it is.
Yep.
Doesn't sound like you really want to be doing this. And so it really is, I call it my leadership magnet. I want to attract a certain type of kid. I want to repel a certain type of kid. Like, and I mean that sincerely. It's repel not because it's a bad kid. They're just not ready to be a leader. You know, I look at, and this has been interesting. And my son doesn't listen to your podcast, so I can say this. My youngest son would never apply to be a leader. He just likes being in band. He doesn't want to do the whole, or at least to this point, he's auditioning next week for drumline, but he didn't put in to be a section leader. He just likes doing band. He is not the type of kid you want as a leader. And so if you make the process arduous enough, it repels that type of kid who's on the fence. And that's what you really want to do. You want to attract the kid who's all in. So the 5 characteristics, remember what they were. You got to be organized. You got to be a problem solver. You got to be an advocate. You got to be service oriented, and you've got to be fun. So I said, okay, I now know it's a 5-step application process because I'm looking for 5 characteristics. And so I rebuilt the process from scratch, and I designed it this way. Step number 1 of the 5-step process, you have to submit a resume. Now, understand this. Martin, school is supposed to be educational, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. School should be accessible to every child, right?
Absolutely.
Kids, every child should learn something from every experience. Fair point?
Mm-hmm.
What are we teaching the kids that aren't selected?
Well, they're still going through the process, so they're learning the being organized and the
So
resume
that's the
process.
point. The process itself has
Yep.
to be grounded in educational philosophy.
Yep.
If someone looked at my process, are they getting an educational experience even if they're not selected? So a resume, you have to submit a resume. You're learning a good skill. The band's getting to know something more about you. The other thing about this process is there are 2 things I went into it. Number 1, it has to be educational, even if you're not selected. Number 2, there's got to be something in it for the band and something in it for the kid. Okay. Kid learns to do a resume, band gets to know more about the kid. Great. Second thing, I want a kid to be a problem solver. So I would pick a problem that was annoying to me that year, whatever it was, attendance, practicing, whatever. And I would say, give me 3 solutions to this problem. Okay. Now, the kid gets to use problem solving, critical thinking skills, and learning about the program from a higher level. I have 60 applicants. I now have 180 possible solutions to the same problem. The kid got something out of it. I got something out of it. Go on to step 3. Remember, step 1 was organized. Step 2 was problem solver. Step 3 was an advocate. The kids had to interview someone on campus about leadership. And so I would tell the kids flat out before they went out and did their interviews, I would say, I don't give a red hot skippy crap what you learn about leadership. I do not. What I do care about is that's 15 minutes with a teacher on this campus. You better advocate for the band. And sure enough, every year my principal comes, Scott, I got 42 kids who want to talk to me about leadership. What are you doing down in the band room? This is amazing. And Scott, I didn't know you need new uniforms. The kids all told me about it. Scott, they said they're all playing on broken instruments. How do we get that fixed? I need money, Frank. I need a new Barry sax, whatever. The football coach called me every year. He's like, I wish my football kids were brought in the way. The English department, everyone on campus now knew intimately what you and I and Aaron have known for years. We teach everything but music. So they're an advocate because it had to be on campus. I don't care if it's a custodian. I don't care if it's a head football coach. Had to be. Now all of a sudden I've got 40, 50, 60 different faculty members who are like, I had no idea what you do in band, Scott. They're advocating. Step 1, organize. Step 2, problem solver. Step 3, advocacy. You have to be advocating for the band at all times. Step 4, service oriented. You had to do a 1.5 hour service project for the band. The kid got to learn what's going to take to be a leader. I got a project fixed. I got something fixed. Mm-hmm. I got something painted. I got something done. So again, the kid's going to get something out of it. I'm going to get something out of it at all times. Step 1, resume. Step 2, problem solving. Step 3, advocate. Step 4, communities or service oriented. And then step 5, it's a little more elaborate on the current application because people aren't as creative. But it literally on my application had 2 words: dazzle me. Dazzle me. And kids at first, band kids like to be told what to do. It's their whoopee.
Hmm.
Like, I know what time I'm supposed to show up, but could you just tell me to show up on time tomorrow? I just like hearing it. I know band kids like to follow very prescribed sets of instructions. It's the nature of the activity. It's not the 28 and the hash mark. It's 28 and a quarter, 2.5 off the hash. It's your 8 cents flat. It's, whatever. They like structure. So the kids do, at first, the kids do not like dazzle me. What do I do, Mr. Lang? I don't know. Dazzle me. Well, what would be an I? Nope. Dazzle me. I'm not going to give you any instructions. You just got to figure it out. The only instruction I ever give on the dazzle me is when you came up with it, if you didn't giggle out loud, it's probably the wrong project. If it doesn't make you, I call it the giggle test. Like, if you don't go, oh my God, that would be epic, then it's not the right project. Because that won't dazzle me. That may surprise me. That may amuse me. Won't dazzle me. So I'll give you some ideas. So the first year, the kids are always very timid. I wrote a poem, and then one kid will do something outrageous and everyone will go, you want that. And then after year 2, it just explodes. And it's total chaos in your facility for about 2 weeks. I mean, I showed up one day and there were 2,000 Post-it notes inside my office, each with a different idea how to make the band better. I showed up one day and my office had been separated in half to show the 2 different combinations of what those 2 drum majors could bring. One day we had a train track at Tempe High, went right by the school. One day a train went by and had a sign on it that said Seth Gorey for trombone section leader. I mean, who gets a sign on a moving train? One day, early in the morning, my band officer rings. Band room, this is Mr. Lang. Can I help you? My name's John Williams, and I'd like to talk to you for a minute. Do you have a minute? Yeah, I have a minute. What can I do for you? I want to talk to you about Brett Hohalter, drum major, blah, blah, blah. We're talking for like 3 minutes. I go, could you give me your name again? And he said, yeah, I'm John Williams. And I said,
Like
are
the
you the
composer.
John Williams? And he said, yes, I am. Brett Hohalter reached out to me. He's a very tenacious young man. And he had John Williams call me. I mean, like, I've had some of the most amazing. I had a kid. This is probably my favorite of all time. This is back in the days when, Photoshop was cutting edge. A kid took a bunch of band photos and turned them black and white and then inverted them. So what was a solid was now white and
Mhm.
outline. He put 50 pages together. He bound 100 of them and took them to a homeless children's shelter with crayons. And he donated coloring books to homeless kids. I was dazzled. I had a girl one time, she delivered her application every day at 3 o'clock in pieces. It was 5 pieces over 5 days. And I had to go on a scavenger hunt every day to find the dazzle me. I had a kid write a kid named Tom Mortensen wrote a composition and we premiered it at a concert. So those are the 5 steps, but it's educational mind. The kid gets something, I get something. And it's built around the 5 tenets of what I believe leadership is for me. Maybe not for Martin, maybe not for Aaron, maybe not for Matt, but it worked for me. And so, I would tell anyone, deconstruct the process and decide what you want to build first. Like literally sit down one day and go, what do I really want from a kid? Not what tasks, what jobs, what is the type of kid I want? And then redesign or tweak or jigger your application process to attract that type of kid and repel the kid who's not that kid. That was very long-winded.
No, it was excellent.
Great.
Excellent. Now, you started that process. Were the results pretty instantaneous?
Yes, instantaneous. Doug Nottingham, right?
Yeah.
Doug Nottingham worked on my staff the first 3 years. And I love me, Doug. For those who don't know Doug Nottingham, you should, because he is one of the funniest human beings you'll ever meet. And he's smarter than 3 people put together in a room. If Doug's in a room, chances are he's the smartest one in that room. Doug I remember I was walking by one day and I was conducting the band, and Doug walked by the open band room door, and I go, you know what? You know what? You know what's fun? And he literally stops, sticks out, he goes, kicking people's asses. And then he just kept walking down the hallway. Oh my God, I loved it. But so Doug came to me once, and we were talking about something. He said, I'm going to paraphrase the first part. He basically said, you're an excellent teacher, Scott. Thank you. I'm paraphrasing. The second part was, he goes, but you missed your true calling. And I go, what is it? And he goes, you should have started a cult. You would have been a great cult leader. But that's how I got that culture. Those kids, when you get through that process, you are hook, line, and sinker, my kid. You think like me, you understand. And I tell the kids, this is the other thing. So if you're listening to this, the way the structure would work, I would have a meeting Monday morning, Wednesday lunch, and Friday after school for anybody who wanted to be a leader. I numbered the applications. You had to attend the meeting. And I would tell the kids, if you're not available Monday morning, Wednesday at lunch, Friday after school, you're too busy to be a leader. So don't bother applying. Period. But then I would talk to the kids. I'd show them the dark side. Listen, let me tell you why you're doing number 3, the interview. You're advocating. I need you out there. Let me tell you, when I was just really upfront with kids, I'm doing this because if you like this application, you will love being a leader. If you do not like this application, it doesn't make you a bad leader, it just means you're a bad leader in my organization. Because you're going to be service oriented, you're going to be a problem solver, you're going to have to advocate for me, you're going to have your crap together, and you're going to have to be fun. If we're not having fun, what are we doing here? That was when I would say the birth of the Tempe band happened. I mean, I had taught 2 or 3 years, but that was when we went on an immediate trajectory upward, where, I mean, the kids were just rabid band kids. So yeah, I saw almost an instantaneous. And then, as you grow, think about it this way: as you grow, you're drawing from a deeper pool, which will always yield a higher candidate pool. I mean, that's as true at Walmart as it is at teaching, as it is in student leader. When you've got 28 kids in your band and you're trying to pull 10 leaders, it could be thin pickings. When you've got 180 kids in your band and you're trying to pull 10 leaders, they're going to be lined up 10 deep. So to give you an idea, if you want to be evidence-based, when I moved to my second school, I took that process with me. And in year 1, you could just tell they were not, they had been through 3 directors in 3 years. And my predecessor was not my personality type. It was business. We have work to do. This is not, and they didn't love the process at first. They embraced it, but they didn't love it. I think I had 26 applicants for 22 spots. And by my year 4 there, I had 82 applicants for 22 spots, which means 82 service projects, 82 interviews, 82 dazzle me's. Like, the band room turned into the most chaos. For 2 weeks in April, it is chaos. So a week of meetings, a week of spring break. I always did the meeting the week before spring break. A week of spring break, applications were due the Friday after you got back, and all elements had to be completed by then. And my rationale for doing that was I learned after probably my 2nd or 3rd year, the juniors were like, Mr. Lang, it's term paper month or week or whatever. We're dying here. So I thought, oh, well, if I just move it to spring break, then you can't say you didn't have time. Right? So that was my thought process. And it worked out well. So it would have been 4 weeks ago, they would have gotten the instructions. 3 weeks ago, they would have had spring break. Applications are due Friday, the week after spring break.
Yeah, think about now. So now in the cycle, so you would have selected your leaders. What's their next step? So what would they do with you from now until the end of the school year? What, if any, summer things would you do with your leaders?
Yeah, so first things first is the moment you're elected, you're the leader. Everyone else is relieved of their positions for the remainder of the year. They're tired, they're burnt out, they're frustrated. You guys are gangbusters ready to go. And I got 2 months left in the school year. I'm going to use that energy. And obviously, there's a lot of carryover, kids that didn't graduate and that sort of thing. But your term of service ends the first Friday after spring break every year. The new team jumps on board because that's about the time when kids are running out of steam. So now I got 25 new hyped up, 35, 40 new hyped up kids loving band, right? So that's the first thing I did. And I didn't do that till probably my last 6 years. And I just realized, look, seniors, you want to check out. You're done. You don't give a crap about next year's band. I get it. So that's step one. Then what I would do is we would do a 3-day leadership retreat in the woods every summer, to train the kids and do team bonding and team building and talk about how to teach and how to structure a sectional. So I would go away to the kids in the woods with 3 days and do training with them. And then we would obviously do 2 days of planning and team building before band camp. And then we met every Wednesday throughout the season. So that was kind of the way you start immediately, you learn on the job. We'll do three days of training, you get the rest of the summer off. We'll do 2 days of training and planning and getting the building ready for band camp. And then we'll meet every day at band camp. We met every morning, 20 minutes before the start of camp. And we met at the end of camp every evening for 5 minutes. Hey, what went well, what didn't, who struggles,
Yep.
and then every Wednesday once school started.
Talk to us a little bit about the structure of that 3 days in the woods.
It changed every year. Well, one thing I'll tell you, I always brought a guest because no one wants to hear from the same person for 3 days, sometimes two guests. John did it more than once or twice. Lot of teachers who probably are retired now, they would come up and do it. So I don't know that I can, give you a very specific like protocol, but we always talked about conflict resolution. What do you do because if you're in band long enough, there's going to be some drama. That's why we have color guard, right? I mean, let's just be honest, right? I mean, you got 25 girls and there's going to be some drama, right? Or guys, whatever. So we always did conflict resolution. We always did goal setting. We always did how do you manage your crap, your time, your sectionals, your paperwork. But we also did some, I think some creative stuff. So every section was required to cook a meal for everyone. And so they did all the meals. So and it got to be a thing. Like they're like, and I had to tell them we have 2 vans. Your cooler's got to be small, right? But I mean, I made my grandmother's paella, and it's been in our. I mean, and it became a thing, And so I would have to assign meals based on people's cooking skills. So the low brass always got breakfast. They couldn't cook to save their life. Eggs and bacon. How hard can it be, right? Cereal. I don't give a crap. But man, you get some of these girls who grew up in Hispanic households and they can't cook. And they would bring menudo and the handmade tortillas. And so, we did a lot of that. And then what they would do is when we'd serve a meal, they'd educate. And, maybe some people might say a blessing. It's a school event, so I couldn't do that per se. But they would talk about the meal and why they made it and what it meant to their family. So that was really fun to have the kids do all the meals.
What a great idea. Yeah,
Yeah, I
super
loved
cool.
that.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to cook or shop or clean.
What was your favorite meal that was made? Like you're like that one, that's the bomb.
Someone made homemade tamales. And if you've not made tamales, it takes 2 solid days.
Yep.
I mean, she's like, first we hand grind the masa, and then we got the chilies and we fire roast them. And I mean, I was like, girl, it was two girls, best friends, who could both cook. And that one, I'll never forget that, because they're like, yeah, we started this on Wednesday and we ate it for dinner on Friday. It's, but here's the thing, that application brings out that type of kid. They look at that and they don't see it as work. They see this as cool. I get to do this. I get to serve. I get to bring my own personality to this group. That's the whole point of that application, is to get me that type of kid, because that type of kid will be successful at everything they do for the rest of their life. I could never train them. They'd be just fine. They're valedictorian. Let's be honest. We're not training kids. We're tweaking them, right? Because they're walking in the door, smart, goal-oriented, hardworking, kind, respectful, because they wouldn't last in your program if they weren't those things already. Most people are trying to coach those things up. Your kids walk in the door with those characteristics. So now it's about tweaking. And for me, I think the most important thing, it's about finding the right fit. I really believe that. I believe fit is everything.
Yeah. And, in programs like where I taught, where we had numbers, so we had a lot of kids, where we did have a lot of applications, I still could only have, 1 or maybe 2 trumpet section leaders, or let's say,
Right.
we would have a tiered system where there would be the section leader and then,
Sure.
more or less what would be an assistant. What, if any, kind of opportunities did you have for the student who they didn't hold the formal title of the section leader or of the leadership team member, but you still wanted them involved? What
So
about those kids?
I would tell anyone listening to this, which is my golden retriever and my mother, but I would tell anyone who's listening to this, titles are easier to create than leaders. So if you have a qualified, competent kid, you make something up for them, period. Like my leadership team was never a fixed number. It was an accordion.
Mm,
So what I did when I came across that, and my last year at Marcos, on 80 applications, I'm like, I'm screwed. I I stayed up half the night just making up titles. Like, and what I ended up doing was I called my section leaders, my instruction team, and then I created a band management team. And my favorite example of this was I'm anything that has to do with anything other than running a sectional, you're in charge of. And I had these 5 girls I put on the bulletin board committee. I swear to you, these were the best bulletin boards you've ever seen in your entire life. They would like, you watch those serial killer shows and there's strings attached and they cut out letters out of a magazine. It looked like that every month. These girls, they'd be like, it's calendar day, Mr. Lang, bulletin board day, great. They were there till 7 o'clock at night. And they came in with letters already cut out, folios, design. I'm like, how have I not had this my entire life? This is the single greatest accomplishment of my entire teaching career was my bulletin board committee. But it just showed me like those were just 4 kids that weren't ready to be section leaders, but were ready to do anything for me, right? And so I had uniform people, obviously librarians. I had my management team. I had my facilities team.
mm,
I mean, like, I made crap up. So every kid who I felt was competent and qualified could be involved. And I think my team was 40 kids that year. That was the largest leadership team I ever had. And it was awesome sauce. I don't know why I waited 15 years to do that. That was dumb. Should have done that 15 years ago.
And in your process, did you ever create a team where you might have a section that didn't have a strong musical leader within it?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how did you
I
kind of,
grouped them.
okay,
So it wasn't, but if I had to do it now, like if that happened, I'd put trumpets and horns together and call them high brass section leader. I
okay.
did that with low brass in my early years. I didn't have a kid that played tuba that could like literally think his way out of a paper box. I mean, it was bad. Nice kids, hardworking. There wasn't an IQ between the 3 of them, right? So I lumped them together and I gave the baritone section leader the low brass section.
Yeah.
You do
okay,
what you got to do.
right. And you're looking for the kid, it's the
I'm looking for
quality.
the kid. Job, I'll make up a job. I'm looking for the kid. And that's why, again, I cannot stress enough to people, put more time and effort into selection than you do into training. Like, and an example, I use the dog. So I have this dog. I love dogs. Do you guys have dogs? Martin, do
I,
you have dogs?
I got two
See,
dogs,
I love me some Martin Hebda. What kind of dogs you got?
lab shepherd mix. We got them from the Humane Society.
Oh, good for you. Aaron, got dogs?
We have been a golden retriever family, but we're currently on
Okay.
we're in between dogs. Let's put it that way.
I've had 4 golden retrievers in my life. John and I, Gomez, we were roommates and we both had golden retrievers. That's how we got into this dog of choice, drug of choice. So my latest golden retriever, the gate will be open. She just walks out in the front yard and sits down. People will come by 2 hours later and be, Riley's out front. Yeah, she'll be fine. Like night after she never leaves my property. If I'm running, I've trained her not to cross the street. And so I'll forget she's behind me and I'll stop and turn around. She's sitting at the street corner waiting for the release command to cross the street. Like she's obscenely well trained. And people are like, oh my God, you must be such a good dog trainer. I say, well, I got 4 other dogs before that were not this well trained. And I train them all the same way. So it's not the trainer, it's the dog. The right dog will learn whatever trick I want them to learn. The dog that doesn't want to learn isn't going to learn any tricks. Be careful the dog you choose. That's so like the right kid can be drum major or band librarian. Doesn't matter. They're going to do it well. They can be trumpet section leader or drill cleaner. Doesn't matter. They're a good kid. They're going to do whatever I ask them to do, and they're going to do it really well. And honest to God, right now, I'm probably thinking, Hell, I might even, if I did it again, I might switch titles at 9 weeks, move them to a different title just for the challenge of it. I don't know. Good kids, selection is everything. Training is overrated. And this is coming from a guy who travels around and trains kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the selection process. And I genuinely put as much time, thought, effort, energy into selection as you do training. So if you spend 3 days training your leaders, you better spend 3 days figuring out how you're going to choose your leaders.
Great point. Great point. Well, we're so appreciative to you and your time and for all that you do for bands, not only here in Arizona, but across the country. We like to end each of these podcasts with shout outs. So what shout outs would you like to give this evening, Scott?
I'd like to give, first of all, I'd like to give a shout out to any band director in the state of Arizona. Do you realize we have the longest marching season in the country?
I believe it.
And it's not, here's the thing. I was talking to Miles about this. I said, Miles, here's the gate. Ready? I go, state has been the second week in November since the beginning of time. And he goes, yeah. I go, so same time. He said, yeah. I go, okay. School used to start on August 15th, which means band started on August 1st, 2 weeks before school. I go, and at Basha, my son's call date this year is July 8th for band camp. I go, yep. You've got 5 weeks longer to rehearse than I did 20 years ago. And side note, I don't think that's healthy. I think we should truncate it. I honestly am a big fan of the Texas rule, a huge fan of the Texas rule. But my first shot would be to any band director who can convince kids. And I use the word manipulate. If you listen to the podcast, Chris got really mad when I manipulate kids. He goes, no, you motivate. I go, no, it's 118 degrees outside. They're going to carry around 40 pounds of sheet metal, and I'm going to work them like a dog for 7 hours. I call that manipulation. That's not motivation. Motivation wears off after 20 minutes. Then it's just flat out manipulation. So a shout out to every band director in the state of Arizona. Would just be in order. I would give a shout out, and I always try and do this, to Bill Richardson. He was such a massive influence on me. When I taught in Tempe and he was at Corona, I wanted to get a bracelet that says WWBD. What would Bill do? Because he always did the right thing. Mm-hmm. I respect that man to the end. So I would shout out. I would give a shout out to Miles Denny, because I'm a pain in the ass band parent, and he puts up with me. He even lets me work and do stuff every once in a while. So I have a tremendous respect and appreciation for Alex DeFrancis, and Miles Denny is a shout out. And then the last shout I'll give is, I think you mentioned it, and you guys do a really good job on your podcast that we don't, and that's techs. They are the unsung heroes that make band work. Because let's be clear, at 58, I don't know the latest technique. I don't know how to work any of that front ensemble sound system. I don't know any of the latest movement techniques, breathing like in some places, especially as the director gets more veteran and older, the gap between their training and their knowledge and what is current grows. And that's where a really good teaching staff and a really good writing staff puts you in a place where your kids can be really successful in the most modern ways, even if it's not you that's teaching it. So my last shout out would definitely go out to every young boy, girl, man, woman, gender neutral pronoun who works with kids for almost no money in scorching heat, gets no credit just because they love teaching.
Those are great shout outs.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Scott. Yeah, and what a great shout out to our staff members and to the directors in the state. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm so impressed with Arizona.
And to our listeners, I would encourage you to check out the Band Dads podcast. The kind of similar, a lot of the things that Scott covered today was covered in the March 10th episode, but there's a lot of different episodes, and band directors, maybe mention this podcast to some of your boosters. There's a really good one on judging. I remember watching that.
And a certificate of awesomeness.
Certificate, when you go through the process. And actually, when you did the test at the end, I thought Chris did a pretty good job.
He did.
He answered all your questions.
And I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast, do you know what band that was?
was it that wasn't Broken Arrow, was it?
You're close. It was Hebron.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that. I do
And so
remember.
we Googled the score. He was less than a half point off of their real score.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know it was, and I will say, folks, so a couple things. If you go to scottlang.net/bandads, I think, you can get the infographic, which explains judging, and you can get the certificate of awesomeness. Also, I don't know if you know this, Martin, but I put the whole application online now,
Yep.
this year. If you go to musicleadership.com, that's musicleadership.com, you can actually see this application and use it in real time. And if you're director, it's all online. So kids submit things and you get notifications and you have a dashboard and you can see who's where. You can actually communicate with them in real time. You can ask them to rewrite answers to questions. You can customize it. So if you don't like my process, make up your own. It's fine. And then there's 5 pre-training units. There's a leadership personality quiz, and then there's 10 post-training units. And it's all done on the web. It is insanely cool. I just released it 8 weeks ago. It's all brand new this year.
I love it. Say that website one more time so people
musicleadership.com. And it's exactly the 5-step. I sat down and I'm like, I should figure out a way to do this online. It's 2026. Well, that's 3 days down a rabbit hole. But when I came out the other side, I'm like, this is really cool. Like, because I just kept going, well, what if we did this? Let's see. What if the director could do this with the application? And it was just a lot of fun to create. And it's up and running, and gazillion schools in it right now.
That's
I
awesome.
get notes every night about the bugs.
Oh, that's great. And then for our podcast here, we're still looking for some end of the year summer band dilemmas that you would like us to maybe speak about on future episodes. You can email us at podcast@azmba.org. So, Scott, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on. We know you're busy, and it took us some time to find a date that we could do this, but it was definitely worth it.
I'm in my spring travel run, so I appreciate your patience. And I appreciate both of you guys helping to raise the art form in Arizona and help, give especially directors who might be in rural areas. I mean, when I taught at Tempe High, here's who I taught with: Mike Wilson, John Clement, Bill Richardson, Leo Warner, and me. I had brilliant teachers within 3.5 minutes of me in every direction. If you're teaching in Winslow or Wickenburg or Wickiup, or I don't have any other W cities in Arizona, but if you're teaching in one of them, it's this podcast and your guys' efforts that help keep them informed, engaged, and maybe just even a little bit inspired. So thank you. Get my final shout out, the two of you.
Oh. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming on.